I was never supposed to hear it. The sentence, delivered in my father's rich, steady baritone, the same voice that commanded boardrooms and closed million-dollar deals, seeped through the half-open door of his corner office and branded itself into my chest like acid. Your sister isn't worth a penny in this business, son. She's done. Forget about her. In that moment, he wasn't just negotiating a contract. He was finalizing the verdict on my worth, and he had decided it was zero. I froze in the hallway, the stack of quarterly reports in my arms turning to dead weight. Through the door, I saw my older brother, Adam, the golden child, seated in the plush leather chair that had always felt like a throne reserved for him alone. His weak defense, I think Rachel's trying her best, was a small, pathetic stone thrown against the wall of my father's disdain. Trying, my father scoffed, the word laced with venom. This isn't a charity. She lacks instinct, leadership. She doesn't have the fire. He paused, letting the silence hang heavy before delivering the blow that shattered the fragile hope I'd nurtured for years. She'll burn out and quit like all women do. The air left my lungs. Every late night I'd spent single-handedly managing the company's financial analysis. Every error I'd caught that Adam had glassed over flashed before my eyes. I wanted to storm in, to scream that his precious heir couldn't distinguish between net and gross profit, but my feet were rooted to the floor. I had already learned the most crucial lesson in my father's world. You cannot fight power with unbridled rage. True victory lies in a quiet, meticulous dismantling, piece by piece, with irrefutable proof. Everton Construction was the family religion, a legacy my grandfather built from the ground up at 27, with a finance degree and a project management certification. I had joined not out of obligation, but out of a genuine belief in that legacy. I lived and breathed efficiency, yet, in my father's eyes, I remained the girl who fetched coffee and handled the spreadsheets. While Adam's big picture training consisted of golf outings and sitting silently in meetings he barely comprehended. That day, after walking away from his office on trembling legs, I sat at my desk and opened a new, blank Excel spreadsheet. I titled it Plan Phoenix. The final public humiliation came 3 months later during a meeting with Summit Industries. I had uncovered a $180 zero annual bleed in their contract due to outdated supplier terms and had prepared a color-coded, simple breakdown. When I began to speak, my father cut me off with a patronizing smile. Rachel, maybe you can type up the minutes instead. Let's stay on topic. The polite chuckles from the men around the table echoed in my ears as I pretended to type, my hands shaking. That night, I sat in my car outside my apartment for 2 hours, the silence pressing in. I wasn't just angry. The time for anger was over. I was done being underestimated. While my father remained fixated on sculpting Adam into his mirror image, I was quietly building a reflection he would never recognize. My rebellion was not one of loud declarations, but of silent, meticulous action, conducted in the shadowy margins of the company he thought he controlled. First, I created a mirror copy of our entire accounting system on a secure, private server, a digital ghost of Everton Construction that only I could see. In the dead of night, while they slept, I began running internal audits, my screen glowing with the truth my father refused to see. I tracked every late invoice that hinted at cash flow problems, every overpayment to a favored supplier, every client we had lost because someone had forgot to follow up after 6 months. The data was no longer just numbers. It was a damning indictment, a binder I labeled, with cold irony, how to save Everton Construction from itself. My strategy expanded beyond the internal. I reached out to 3 clients my father had arrogantly neglected, companies that had taken their business elsewhere after suffering from his mismanagement. I offered them revised contracts with transparent, leaner costs and guaranteed, ironclad deadlines. 2 of them signed immediately, a quiet validation that felt more powerful than any applause. Then, I took the most daring step. I registered a small consulting firm under my own name, RM Analytics, and began freelancing for other construction companies desperate for operational restructuring. I didn't leave Everton, I simply stopped, letting its walls define my world. I was building my own kingdom right under my father's nose. The inevitable explosion detonated on a Tuesday morning, almost a year later. The office air was thick with a tension I recognized immediately. My father was a caged animal, pacing behind his glass wall, his voice a low, furious growl into the phone. Adam sat at his desk, his face ashen. Summit pulled their contract, he muttered as I passed, his voice hollow. What? I asked, feigning surprise. They said our numbers didn't add up. Something about overbilling and outdated payment cycles. I bit the inside of my cheek to suppress a smirk. It was the exact issue I had flagged, the very report I had presented and which had been so casually dismissed. By noon, my father called an emergency meeting, his command echoing through the panicked floor. Rachel, he barked, his eyes wild, get me every financial record from the last quarter. Now, I remained perfectly calm. Already done, I said, my voice steady as I slid a neatly bound report across the polished table. It was the same analysis he had brushed off months prior, now updated with the catastrophic consequences. He froze, his hand hovering over the document. What's this? He demanded, his confidence faltering for the first time I could ever recall. The inefficiencies I flagged, I replied, holding his gaze, the ones that cost us Summit. A profound silence swallowed the room. For the first time in his life, Arthur Everton was speechless. In the weeks that followed, the industry headlines were not about Everton's losses, but about its remarkable turnaround, and narrative I knew was deeply ironic. In the wake of the Summit fiasco, several smaller clients, the very ones I had been secretly consulting for through RM Analytics, reached out to my father, praising the revolutionary, data-driven model I had implemented for them. My recommendations had saved each of them hundreds of thousands. The ultimate humiliation for my father was that his competitors were now paying me for the insights he had deemed worthless. When word spread, a major development firm, seeing the undeniable results, approached me with an offer to merge my consulting branch into a powerful new division under their banner. They wanted me, and only me, to lead it. The press release sent shockwaves through the city. Its headline, a personal victory. Former Everton accountant launches data-driven firm, reshaping the construction industry. That same afternoon, as I stood in my new office overlooking a skyline that suddenly felt full of possibility, my father appeared at my door. His presence no longer a command, but a question. He stood in my doorway, a man I no longer feared. The bluster was gone, replaced by a weary slump in his shoulders that made him look older, smaller somehow. You blindsided me, Rachel, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The words an admission of defeat. I offered a calm, steady smile, the kind he used to reserve for closing deals. No, Dad, I warned you, you just never listened. The truth hung in the air between us, simple and unassailable. He let out a heavy sigh, the sound of a lifetime of certainties crumbling. Maybe I was wrong about you, you were, I said, my tone devoid of bitterness. It was just a fact. But thank you for that. A deep frown creased his brow. For what? For giving me something to prove. Now, a year later, I run a company twice the size of Everton Construction. My office is a testament to everything my father's wasn't, filled with light, open spaces, and the quiet hum of innovation. We don't just build structures. We engineer efficiency with AI-driven analytics, foster trust with transparent contracts, and honor the future with sustainable materials. Half my executive team is female, a statistic I am unapologetically proud of. We aren't just checking boxes. We are shattering ceilings with every decision we make. Adam still works with my father. Their company survives, but barely, clinging to the old ways in a world that has rapidly passed them by. Sometimes I see their ads pop up online, promising modern innovation and smart leadership. A wry smile always touches my lips then, a private acknowledgement of the profound irony. I know exactly where those borrowed ideas came from. I didn't set out to destroy my family's business. I had no desire to demolish my grandfather's legacy. I simply outgrew it. I outgrew its limitations, its prejudices, its small-mindedness. And every time I walk into my boardroom now, the head of the table feeling like its natural and center, I remember that pivotal moment, the sting of my father's voice through the door, coldly dismissing me as not worth a penny. Turns out, those pennies add up. They accumulate with every overlooked idea, every silenced suggestion, every patronizing smile. They gather weight and value, especially when you stop waiting for someone to recognize your worth and instead learn how to build your own empire from the very change they so carelessly threw at your feet.